Start recording. We must be live.
Yeah, let's see here.
All right. Bear with us just a second, making sure we're live. Hello, everybody. I'm here in Hilo, Hawaii at the officing as you're in T3 Alliance this year. So this show is built for you, the instructor, to take some of the lessons that we've been working at over the course of this year. Maybe I met you at one of the T3 Alliance trainings here in Hawaii, or maybe you've just been hired and you're wondering, what is this T3 Alliance and how do I get ready for students to come to sit down in front of my classroom and be ready to learn? So today the topic is lesson 1. It's the very first class of the year, and you are going to unpack what is it like to be part of T3 Alliance and what's this class expectation and that kind of stuff. So I'm here, as I mentioned, in Hilo, and I'm working with somebody who's helping me jump between screens. So I'm going to jump over to a post that I have, and the post is right here, the lesson sequence post. So this link will be shared in the video afterwards so that you can kind of understand what it is. But just so you kind of have a reference point here, the order of lessons are a response to me working with programs trying to design out how do I fit the first lesson, second lesson, third lesson as this program unpacks itself in order. So today we'll start off with the overview of your program, and then every week subsequently we are going to jump into these other topics and unpack them, and for every one we'll build lessons that go along with that in that capacity. So for the overview of our program today, it's the first day of school, and either we're talking about a summer program or we're talking about an after-school program during an academic year or a Saturday academy. But the truth is, students sitting with you have the same kinds of questions. They are wondering, what is this T3 Alliance program I'm sitting here in? What are things that have been done before, and what might we do? And then what's expected of me as a student here? So this is going to be different in every community. We know that some things will be similar. I've put some recipe items in there, and some of the lessons we're going to learn, we're going to use BrushBots, we're going to use these cool Raspberry Pi kits. We'll play around with a lot of stuff that all of us will be doing in a similar fashion, but some things are going to be unique to your environment, and so helping you design what that first picture painting experience will look like is part of what we're happening with here today. So let me talk about the objectives for the students, and I can zoom in right here so I'll go over them. Be able to describe, so first, I usually take 30 to 45 minutes for the first day of class. And that 30 to 45 minutes, a chunk of it is taken up with the evaluation, because you're part of the T3 Alliance program, and part of what is awesome about being in the T3 Alliance program is we get a before and after assessment to show how much growth students have made over the course of the year. So we got a budget for that. But still, the objectives this first day, be able to describe the goals of the T3 Alliance, learn about some projects that have been done and what might be done by your program, and then lastly, understand those expectations for a member of this class or club. The kids want to know, am I going to do something cool, and how will I be thought of as a student here? And we're gonna get there. So when we begin here, I like to think, let's review what T3 Alliance program is, and I'm going to review it from a teacher perspective so that you guys understand a little bit about what it is. And this right here doesn't have a link to this presentation, but soon I will put one in, and then you can review it in that way and know about it. And I've got some other resources that you can use as a teacher so that you'll get things like that along. Now, I was just at a recent conference and teaching people about the T3 Alliance program, and some of the big picture topics I go over here, and I'd like to just review them with you so that we're all in the same boat. So this first slide I'll hit present, is some of my students here in Hilo describing what T3 Alliance is. And that's always a good thing to think of as we share with others. So I'll push pause. It's just a 55-second video and then we'll move on. Well, I guess that didn't work. Let me go back, try one more time.
T3 stands for Teaching Through Technology.
T3 is one of the most interesting experiences that I've been through.
You do a lot of hands-on projects and projects that help the community.
You learn so much about computers and programming that I never knew before.
Changed my perspective on computers through technology.
We made selfie stations for the new student orientation. It's going to be a scavenger hunt, so at each station there's going to be the cameras. Pictures will then be sent to the UH Hilo email.
We went on to a community project where we built centers for the people who were affected by the lava.
So when we got to go out and talk to people and find out that something that we did, they really needed and they really appreciated it, was a very touching experience for me.
All right, so that first slide was a little bit about a sales pitch in a way. My program, as you guys all know, I am both an instructor here at UH Hilo for the T3 Alliance program, and I also work as curriculum director for the National T3 Alliance program. So we're testing out some of what we're talking about here. But if you show that to your kids at some point in the day, then they'll have that kind of excited feeling of, all right, this is kind of what I might be doing here. And the three things that came up as components there, the three things that this grant is built on is, first of all, growth mindset. And just kids may have a history with growth mindset. Maybe they don't. Maybe that's the buzzword at their school, or maybe it's the first time they've heard that. But they can know that growth mindset is one of the ways they work. Tech skills is another way they work. And community projects are something that's important. So in your program, you'll be saying, hey, I'm going to give you some tech skills. We're going to keep things with growth mindset, and then we'll find some community projects. Whether it starts out at the beginning or that's later on, that's up to us, up to how you guys build your program. But that being said, you've just kind of introduced it. So the T3 Alliance, you can remind them it's part of a grant. NSF is the National Science Foundation, and the University of Alaska Fairbanks wrote a grant to the National Science Foundation, and they said yes, and they said you can give kids equipment, and you can and help kids use this kind of philosophy in order to see if they move into STEM career fields. And we have gone beyond that now. We have that picture that you saw before. This is the EPSCoR states. Those are the states that don't receive very much federal funding, but we've both met that goal as a National Science Foundation grant, and we've opened our doors to include other programs. So this is kind of a map showing all of the programs. There's 41 different T3 Alliance sites. That's universities that are using T3 Alliance kind of equipment. Some of them are not in EPSCoR states, but just let them know that there's that kind of stuff. Okay, the grant speak that goes along with T3 Alliance is, hey, we use STEM technology to help students identify, get a feeling for a STEM identity, and to decide that a STEM-focused career activity will be what they follow. That's grant speak, but what you can know is that it came from a place, a project that was done in Alaska, called the Modern Blanket Toss. And this project had, so first let me explain what is a blanket toss. This little picture right here shows somebody bumping up into the air, looking around, and there's a bunch of people standing here holding a blanket. Well, the modern equivalent of that could be like a drone flying up in the air. And essentially, this was a 3-year project in which students from a bunch of sites around Alaska utilized drones and found ways of engaging the drones to make their community a better place. So in a similar fashion, T3 Alliance takes that same idea, technology skills, and with growth mindset, engages it into community opportunities. So part of what kids can know is that There's those 3 bullet recipes. You keep a growth mindset, you have some technology skills, and you get out into the community and do something with those technology skills. That's what it boils down to. Okay. Now, as I'm talking to teachers and I'm talking to or instructors and I'm talking to directors, I always throw up these 3 images, and I apologize about the badness of my handwritten graphics here, but we get the idea here. There's one part that's student preparation. We prepare students by having an overarching umbrella of growth mindset along with tech skills and communication skills. You can't learn how to program a Raspberry Pi without learning how to ask somebody if they need some help on something. And this little word down here at the bottom, design thinking, this is a process that's used all over the engineering world to help us understand what it means to solve problems in our community. So it's human-centered design. That's student preparation. You're helping kids get there. But it's also true that with your director in the background, you're doing program preparation. You're figuring out what the learning facility is going to look like. You're managing all the stuff, keeping track of all these little Raspberry Pis and the stuff that's out there is preparation. If you're going to take field trips, you know that there must be forms that need to be filled out. There must be red tape that needs to be cut and that kind of stuff. If you have, who are you going to get to work with you? And then the last one, the one that we'll talk about a little bit here, is how do we prepare our communities so that we're ready to receive students or work with students as they go through things. And the image I have here is like a person fishing in an elevator, because sometimes you're out there talking to people in your community who you already know are really good at being involved in projects or have something to give that they're excited about. If you prepare them so that your students who are prepared are ready to interact with each other and come up with a cool project, then that's pretty awesome. So this student preparation set, umbrella of growth mindset, fixed mindset, communication skills, tech skills. There's going to be a whole lesson coming up soon on what the growth mindset is and how it works. So I don't need to go into this in super detail, just to let you know that you'll be teaching kids about the growth mindset. You'll teach them why, when they're feeling like they have a fixed mindset, they're scared, and why that fear brings up a standard fight and flight response system, which means I don't want to learn, I just want to stay safe. And what we do here in this program is we sneak in a little bit of play. So we have icebreakers, we have competitions, we have challenges. We hold space for kids so that they can practice and have fun with this kind of stuff when they're learning. Because when you're playing, then you're not feeling, ooh, am I good enough? Ooh, did I do it right? Ooh, you know what I mean? You think of like kids playing with Legos or kids playing with a stick, and that stick can become a lot of different options, but as soon as somebody tells them that stick has to be a stick, then you get a certain kind of reaction. So we work on that. We'll use icebreakers, and I'll teach you what these little icebreakers can be like later on. The rope trick one, there's a lot of different icebreakers, but all of these things help a student de-armor from the cool factor of, oh, I'm so cool, down to, all right, we just play and we have fun. Then we jump into, right away, technology skills. And if we work on technology skills right after this, we start with the brush bot. And the brush bot, you guys have done, if you've been at a training, you know that this little simple set of materials here can be really powerful for engineering process, because you don't give them too many instructions, but you give them enough to get in and mess around and start building stuff. Okay, there's a lot of teaching that can happen after you build it and teach them about center of gravity. You can unpack that lesson for as long as you want, but really the grant and what we're doing is take that same mindset and let's bring us into technology. So Raspberry Pi encoding, later on you'll get into 3D printing or autonomous vehicles, either little Raspberry Pi driven cars that move around or drones or whatever else. But all 3 of these technologies have that component in place of, if students get given enough time to play with it and mess around with it and learn some key components, then we can go out and find a way to apply that in our community. And remember, this is stuff that I'm sharing with you guys. This very first thing that you'll do with them, building a a Raspberry Pi box is pretty fun. I'll show you that stuff later when we go through that lesson of putting together a Raspberry Pi box. Know that there's tons of lessons and tutorials. These are recipes that exist on our website, and we'll order them so that your students know, and you know, that you could go and follow a recipe to turn on a push button. You could follow a recipe to do a sonic sensor. That's great, but we'll also have some examples of projects that can be on there. And these projects are more involved projects. And this is getting back to one of the things that students want to know on their first day. What are some projects? What are some examples of what programs have done? And as soon as a project gets to that level where we can engage a community, then we can sneak in some communication skills. We know that you can't do a community project without listening to the people that you're working with. You can't tell somebody about your project unless you've got a little bit of public speaking opportunities that come out there. If you're going to make a video describing your project, you need to learn some videography skills. So communication skills are embedded when we have community engagement opportunities. And as you guys remember, and maybe if this is the first time because you just got hired, then this will be new to you. But design thinking is a 5-step process in which if a student follows this process with respect to their to the client or the person in their community that they're helping, then they will be able to address needs in a way that can adapt to whatever your situation is. So empathize, develop a deep understanding, define that problem, figure out what it is, ideate, come up with brainstorm ideas, figure out what you might be wanting to do, prototype, build it, see what it looks like, and then test it out. That's a simple process. What we're going to do here, as you guys unpack how this year works, is we're going to add like a little layer in there. Right in between the ideate and prototype section, you'll add in a grant. And that's where kids will say, oh, I want to build this thing, but it costs money. Now that it costs money, how am I going to do that? So here's a quick little video clip that you're welcome to use, and it'll be in the one. This is a Raspberry Pi camera sensor that one of our teams put together to make a selfie station. Whoops. Hold on. That's the mini grant that goes along with it. Let me try play again. There we go.
Our team consists of 4 people, and our names are Haley, AJ, Veronica, and Rihanna. And we're making a camera setup for Student Orientation Day. Our plan is to set up a tripod and connect a camera to the RPI during the photo scavenger hunt. We connected the RPI to a computer and coded it so that it's programmed to take a picture on demand when the button is pressed. There is a LED ring that will count down with the flash for 10 seconds, which will help you prepare yourself for the picture to be taken. Our station is located at the campus center, and the camera setup will be on the wall. There will be tape on the floor that will help you with where you stand. The picture will then be sent to the UH New Students Organization email immediately after the picture is taken. That will then be posted on a hashtag of their choice on Twitter or Instagram.
Okay, so all that happened there was you saw that there was a mini grant that was part of that. Well, first you saw an example of what a project was like at UH Hilo. This is a project that I want you to just keep in the back of your mind. You might unpack this same project in your own community. Whether you call it a selfie station or whether you call it a motion sensor camera for security or something, it's up to you. But notice that they had to come up with a mini grant where they said, oh, it's going to cost me $50. I'm going to need double-sided tape, a camera, an LED ring, and they put together their grant. That grant is communication skills, okay? And it's been done differently in different places. In Puerto Rico, I had an opportunity to go there and work with those guys. They had another issue where wind from Hurricane Maria had blown out the windows in some of their classrooms. So they built a system like this in order to whoops, I'll go back and try this one again. In order to and I'll mute my computer. There we go. And then we'll come back to full screen here. And they built a system like this in order to address that community need. And again, that was how can we build something that fixes a problem? And it was, a project that fit that category. So these are some examples of what other programs might be doing. And there we are taking a little Raspberry Pi camera. We stick it through something. The kids went for all the fun of how to cut things and do things. And in the end, they install that camera so it looks nice and hidden up in the ceiling. And when somebody moves through the window, there's a little motion sensor there, and cha-ching, they get an email to a phone. So that's kind of another example of a project. And over time, as we are more powerful as a T3 Alliance, we'll come up with more and more of these kind of examples so that you can share with your students, hey, this is what the kinds of projects that are being done across the country fall into. Now, we know that there's going to be an opportunity for you to have a place where you describe what is it that you are doing in your community, or what's a possible thing that happens in your community. This might be an opportunity where you stop with sharing their examples and you say, now let's brainstorm a little bit about what we might do. What issues do we have going on in our community? If you learn to use our tech skills, what will we be able to address as part of this kind of as giving back to our community, or making something happen of this? If I jump down to this slide here again, that's about community preparation and getting ready. If I jump back to our overview of lessons right here of where we're going, I just want to point out I've put forward the 20 lessons that I think would happen kind of in order over the course of a summer program, or over the course of a program. And first, you're going to tell people about your program. What is it? And then you'll go into the growth and fixed mindset. You'll obviously build the Raspberry Pi kits, because there's stuff that goes along with that. You'll teach people about computers, Raspberry Pi, the Internet of Things, and then learn some basic programming skills, get to use the Node-RED, the programming language that we use a lot in our program, and start moving on to maybe some advanced Node-RED skills where we use the camera. And we'll have a project opportunity that comes in there. And this can be everybody does this project, or it could be we're going to tweak the project a little bit for our community. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where you're controlling your device from a distance and working through your local area network system. You can set up your computer to send to Google Photos. We'll teach the students what the design thinking process is, and then get to a point where towards the middle to the end of the summer, you're doing something in your community. You're building a selfie station or some other project that goes along with that. So you having this big idea helps us with this first lesson here of being able to describe the goals of the T3 Alliance program, learn about some projects that have been done by other T3 Alliance programs. Okay, so the ones that I've told you about are Hawaii, and I'll load this up with some more resources that I'll share with you there. It will tell you about Puerto Rico, the other programs that I know that have done things community related, and then it's up to you to kind of have a little brainstorm session with your students about what might we do, or what are some opportunities, or what are some issues facing our community that we might be able to address or work with. And then lastly, as all teachers know, if a student's sitting there on the first day of school, understand what are the expectations that are going to be for me as a student, as a member of this class or club. And that's a little bit variable depending on your location. So I'm going to scroll down my notes here for what we're talking about here. The first, what are projects that have been done by other T3 Alliance programs? Well, this should have a 2 on it. Well, obviously, the auto-editing feature of 1, 1, 1, those are all 3 different goals. Projects that have been done by other T3 Alliance programs, good, and understand the expectations. For you to share these expectations, I want you to consider the reality or context of your program that is within the university, and then also think of what are the expectations from your program on a national level. So some of this means talk to your director. You and your director need to have a clear idea of this. What's the teaching space going to be like? Is it a classroom where I move in, I move out, depending on what day it is? What existing resources do your Upward Bound program have? Do you already have cameras? Do you already have computers that can be checked out from time to time? What sort of student-teacher ratio can you expect? Is it 1 to 20? One teacher for 20 students, or is it that you have the ability to hire on as many teacher's assistants or computer science majors or something like that who can be working with you? And then maybe lastly, what are some shovel-ready community engagement projects that might be out there? And I use the word shovel-ready because it refers to like a project that would be a construction project where all we need is money and an enthusiastic crowd and we can make something happen. For you're thinking in terms of what is a project that we could make happen in our community that's got need, and we can think of somebody who might work with us. So those are things that you and your director can brainstorm about and share. Things that aren't negotiable for the program are things that we do as a National T3 Alliance program that I want you to make sure that you're passing along this expectation to the students. First, make sure you've got a growth mindset culture, that in your classroom you guys speak to each other with growth mindset, and as we unpack that lesson we'll share that with you. Being accountable to each other. If that means you're in this class and you say you're going to do something, especially if you got a community member involved, you want to know that they do what they're committing to be aware of. And if that means the T3 Alliance program, it means, hey, part of this program is we take a pre and post assessment when we go through there, and you need to answer those questions honestly and openly. There's going to be times when you meet expectations for students and a vision that you're going to share with them, and of course I will make and share with you as a Google slide what that can look like. But does that make sense here? And I know I'm asking a question, and those of you who are out there on the audience may be typing in an answer here, but that understand what the expectations for me will be as a member of this class or club. You're speaking from the student's perspective and working backwards from what does that mean that I share to them. Okay. All right. So it makes sense. Okay, so then how do we actually teach this? You only have 35, 40 minutes. That's how much time I'm predicting that it'll take you for this introduction here. I'll give you a bunch of Google slide presentations about T3 Alliance goals, example projects, with a student focus. The students maybe don't need to know all the stuff about why some of the stuff, about why you emphasize play or that kind of stuff. They just need to know that growth mindset is expected and that this is how it's going to be done. But you can copy and edit these Google slide presentations as often as you want. I'll give you a link to all of your evaluation tools and expectations. You can already find those somewhere else. But in this program, right on the first day, try to make sure that kids can have a way to take their initial survey. And then let's give you guys a list of questions that you can go over with the director of your program, just because you guys represent a team that's going to work together to make this happen. Putting those things together and putting it into a lesson sequence is the key for the first time. Imagine having some time for your students to brainstorm, talk about what they're excited with. If possible, try to have it in a room that has access to computers, because those initial surveys, they need to be done on a survey. And like I said, it takes about 20 minutes. So as this first day is done, you have your student walk away feeling like, yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to come to the next day of class. And what will that look like? As you'll find out in next week's presentation, that next class will be about growth mindset and fixed mindset, and that's when we'll start playing with building Raspberry Pi BrushBot kits and stuff like that. So I've gone over everything that I need to kind of hit on in my notes. The one last thing, and I put this right over here so that I could point it out, and I want to share this screen that's right here on the on this website here. This screen on website says, hey, if I'm setting up my classroom, do I have a dedicated space? Yes or no. If the answer is no, then that means I'm transporting my equipment back and forth every day. I'm going to probably need some carts, or maybe I need some storage cabinets in the Upward Bound office, something like that. But another question that I found that jumps into things, what about the Wi-Fi network? As you guys are going to find, a lot of our projects have an assumption that there's ways that kids can get on Wi-Fi, and you're going to either need to get in touch with your IT administrator at the school and help him understand or help her understand just how exciting this project is, and they'll break down walls and help make things happen, or get yourself part of the instructor's kit, which will be like including enough equipment for 1 box per student. If so, awesome. If not, then well, how are you going to work with that? Do you have a big screen or a large TV so that you can show these presentations? Do you have a smaller document camera? You guys know, even if it's not a document camera, if all it is a little webcam like this, that can be really handy to be able to point out, you know, stuff that you want to see up close, and especially if you're trying to teach a whole class and tell them push something right here, it's kind of hard to see that thing. And then lastly, if you need extra equipment or just one of something, how do you get a hold of that? And some of that is stuff we think about. So I'm always available to reach out and talk to me about individual things, how to set up the program at your school. What I think is going to be so powerful is when each of us in this Teaching Through Technology Alliance shares the model that you guys are using for your first day of class. How do you sell this to students so that they come in and they're excited and ready to go? And then we can look at those models and have a bank of you know, first day of class lessons that we can share. I'll certainly share what I used here at UH Hilo, and across the country. If others of you would like to share in the forum, then we'll grow as we move in that direction. But that's what I have for our day 1 of our web show, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments, and we will be attuned to responding to those things. And thank you very much for joining. All right.
Let's give a few seconds. We have 3 viewers here, so.
Oh, cool.
Any questions?
Any questions?
And if not, we'll.
While I'm waiting for the questions, I'll show a couple of slides of the classroom setups that I've seen before in the past. This is, of course, a classroom setup where we have at our trainings. You know, it's like a bunch of teachers sitting around a circle. They've got their computers, and there's a projector screen up here. This is a classroom setup, my favorite one, where the teacher up here has one, and there's like a little document camera here, and every single table that the kids were working at had its own, you know, projector screen so that kids couldn't get lost. And then the other extreme of here's kids working on boxes in an empty room that you bring stuff in and take stuff out of, and you carry the stuff in and out with cardboard boxes every time. So they're just some examples. Can I leave my equipment? Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah, I don't think there's any questions. So.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you next week. Adios.